The first thing I want to talk about is the idea that every move in Jiu-Jitsu has underlying body movement associated with it. This is an extraordinarily simple and yet very, very deep point about the nature of training in Jiu-Jitsu. I'll say it again because it's very important. Every single move that you learn in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu has underlying movement associated with it. It's almost impossible to learn the moves well if you can't perform those underlying movements. The second thing that I want to talk about is the idea of athleticism. People throw the word athleticism around all the time in various combat sports. The most important thing to understand is that what we describe as athleticism is always domain specific. Attributes that make you athletic in one scenario will not contribute to making you athletic in another scenario. Now, Jiu-Jitsu is unique among the various grappling sports insofar as it puts extraordinary emphasis on the ground, and in particular postures and movement styles on the ground. Most notably, the idea that you have to work effectively off your back. I'm sure you've all had the experience of witnessing, or you might even be someone like this yourself, someone who was a good athlete in another sport, say for example football or hockey or what have you, come in for their first class in Jiu-Jitsu and look like they've never done anything athletic in their life. You've probably also seen the reverse. People who are very good in Jiu-Jitsu suddenly have to go into another sport, say for example boxing or wrestling, and they look like bumbling amateurs. The idea here is very simple. What we describe as athletic prowess is always specific to a given domain. Because the domain of Jiu-Jitsu is quite unusual, almost entirely on the ground, with 50% of that being on your back, it's difficult for people coming from other sports to take whatever athleticism they had in those other sports and apply it in this new context. All athleticism is contextual. One of the fastest ways you can speed your progress as a developing student is to learn the movements that will make you appear athletic in the specific domain of Jiu-Jitsu. The better you get at exhibiting those traits of ground athleticism, the faster your progress will be with the actual moves of the sport. Remember, the ultimate idea is to be able to develop skill, to develop a wide repertoire of moves in the sport so you can be effective when you go against another resisting human being in a competitive situation. That's where it always comes back to. It's about sports performance. The sport of Jiu-Jitsu, you want to go out there and be competitive with the best people, you have to be able to move like an athlete. Because what we call athleticism in Jiu-Jitsu is radically different from most other sports, it requires a deep sense of training in the athletic movements specific to Jiu-Jitsu. That's going to be a huge part of what we do here. The third big theme of this video is the idea of shadow grappling. You're all familiar with the idea of shadow boxing, and I'm sure you've all seen on many occasions the talented boxers that we see in Olympic competition and in professional boxing working beautifully with their various shadow boxing routines. My contention is that shadow grappling routines can play a very important part of your development, just as shadow boxing plays an important part in the development of elite striking athletes. Now, I want to discuss something important here. When most people look at solo drills in Jiu-Jitsu, their experience of them in the gym is almost always as part of a class warm-up. Okay, many of the moves that we look at here today are going to be done, or you'll see and be familiar with, as something you do as a warm-up before class. There's nothing wrong with that. They are fine as a warm-up. But that's not the point of this video. Ultimately, what's going to make you take these skills that you learn, these physical skills, and allow them to make you a better athlete working against a competitive opponent when you go back to your regular training, is the integration of mind and body. When you use these movements as simply a warm-up, where you're just shrimping up and down the mat for repetition, or in some sense we just have to pump out a certain number of repetition, the movements become thoughtless. And as a result, they don't really have much benefit. I know many people who can shrimp up and down the mats all day, but they can't shrimp their way out of the mounted position. Okay, that's a real failure. There has to be a tangible benefit to you doing these movements. You can't just flop around on the mat and do movements which don't enhance your sports performance. That's worthless. My idea is to give you a solo set of drills that actually enhance your performance in a competitive situation. If it doesn't do that, it's not worth your time. The only way you can accomplish this is to change your approach to shadow grappling from a warm-up before class, which is done without thought for numbers or distance, and instead start to include the idea of visualization and imagination in your mind, where you are imagining an opponent and you are imagining a scenario that you are in, so that the movements take on a live characteristic. Instead of having a live opponent in front of you, you have a lively imagination in your mind. And that is what propels you from move to move, scenario to scenario, so that you are actively engaging your mind as you perform the physical movements. Just as a good shadow boxer truly imagines an opponent in front of him moving in certain ways and him reacting to that, so too a good shadow grappler imagines an opponent around him and moves in response to the imagined movements. When you integrate mind and body in this fashion, you're shadow grappling instead of simply performing meaningless movements flopping around on the floor with no tangible benefit. My intention in this video is to give you the physical movements you need and then a training routine which engages the mind and body together so that you are, in a sense, grappling an imaginary opponent rather than simply doing a certain number of moves for a certain number of repetitions. The minute you bridge that gap and you go from solo drills as a meaningless warm-up that has no real carryover to your actual sparring, it's just something you do before class to raise your body temperature, and you start to make it part of an active, imaginative exercise where mind and body are integrated, then you start getting tangible benefits from solo drills. The most commonly asked questions I receive is always the question, how can I speed up the rate of my progress learning the sport of Jiu-Jitsu? Over the years, I've always noticed that certain people definitely seem to progress faster than others. Of course, probably the single most relevant element here is training time. How much time is devoted to training? The second element would be the efficiency of use of that training time. It's no good spending vast amounts of time training if the manner in which you train is just woefully inefficient. So the idea that of amount of time spent and the efficiency of which that time is spent is probably the single biggest determinant of rate of progress in learning. But there is another element, which I've always noticed over the years. Certain people seem to pick up the physical skills of Jiu-Jitsu more easily because more than anything else, they have movement skills. They have physical dexterity, which enables them to perform the moves faster than people who lack that dexterity. These solo drills are designed to give you the kind of physical dexterity which is necessary in the specific sport of Jiu-Jitsu. Probably the greatest gift that this video can give you is the various kinds of body movement which enable you to move in an efficient fashion down on the floor against a resisting opponent. And I'll say it again, if you have the underlying dexterity and ease of movement, you will progress faster in the sport than someone who lacks it. How are we going to get you better at Jiu-Jitsu when you're spending time off the mats rather than on the mats? My answer to you comes in three different directions. There are three directions you must go with your training when you can't access your regular gym, which will make you a better Jiu-Jitsu player. The first is what was the content of this video, the idea that there are certain solo drills, movements, which underlie the actual skills of the sport. For every move in Jiu-Jitsu, there's a set of underlying moves. The better you get at those movements, the better you'll get at the moves themselves. So the first thing you want to do when you find yourself taken away from the mats for whatever reason is work on those fundamental movements of Jiu-Jitsu. We've seen that they're radically different from other combat sports and other sports in general, and that in any given sport, what we call athleticism is relativized to that one domain. The athleticism of one sport generally doesn't carry over well to the athleticism of another sport. The second big thing that you'll want to go on to do is to stay in good physical shape. Deteriorations in strength and flexibility and conditioning overall won't do well when you come back to return to the mats. So I always recommend some kind of body program which focuses upon your strength, your flexibility, and your overall body conditioning. Obviously, this will be aligned with some kind of nutritional sense where you're not getting overweight. I'm going to leave this up to you. As a coach, over the years, I've seen more or less every kind of strength and conditioning program, every kind of diet program. In truth, after all these years of observation, what I've found is that different athletes respond better to different programs. There has never been any one strength, conditioning, or diet program which made tangible benefits above and beyond any of the other strength and conditioning programs. So you're going to see great advocates of calisthenic training, gymnastics training, Olympic weightlifting, regular bodybuilding, yoga, etc., etc. You're going to see 1,000 things, kettlebell training. All these fashions have come and gone. What I've noted is that they're all very effective, and I've seen world champions of every kind use every kind, but I've never seen anyone change to a given diet or fitness program and it radically improve their performance far beyond what they were doing previously. Okay, that tends to suggest that they all work pretty well. there's, as I said, no one supplementary program has proven dominant to the others. To give you an example, George St. Pierre, when I first knew him as a developing athlete, he was mostly engaged in bodybuilding training, and he did very well early on in his career with that. Then he switched later in his career to an Olympic weightlifting program, and he did very well with that too. Towards the end of his career, he made a switch towards a more gymnastics-based program, and again, he did very well with that. So what you see is that all three programs, very different from each other, all got good results. And you can't really say that any one of those programs got radically better results than the others did. There's another student of mine, Gordon Ryan, favors a mostly bodybuilding-based approach, and he's gotten amazing results with that. Gary Tonin favors something of a compromise between gymnastics work and Olympic lifting, and he gets great results with that. So really what I can say to you is there's 1,000 different strength and conditioning programs out there. I think over the years I've been coaching, I've seen pretty much all of them, and they all got outstanding results. What really determined their effectiveness is not so much the program themselves as how dedicated the student was to the program. That tended to be more the factor involved in whether they succeeded or failed. But there was never a sense in which you looked at one program and, oh my God, this is making them so much better than they were before. That never really happened. So my advice to you is find one which you're comfortable with, which you enjoy. Because enjoyment is an important part of it. If you don't enjoy it, you want to stick with the program. Find something that suits your body well, you're confident works well for you, and stick with that. Okay, but there has to be some kind of program where you're enhancing your strength, conditioning, and flexibility, and your diet is in order so you're not gaining unnecessary weight during the time off. If you can take care of those four things in your own way, then that's an important second part of your program. I'm going to come back later in this video with this. There is one exercise which I make all of my students do, regardless of what kind of strength and conditioning program they're on, but I'll show that to you later on in this video. That's the only thing that I do, put my foot down and I make my students do that, but I'll show you that shortly. Now, with regards to the third element, that is the idea of knowledge, okay? So your first responsibility, when you've got time away from the dojo, is your solo drills that were the content of this video. The second is your strength, conditioning, flexibility, and diet program. I leave that one mostly up to you. They're all pretty effective in my experience. And the third program is the development of knowledge. Remember that ultimately the single biggest determining factor in who wins and who loses in Jiu-Jitsu is skill. Skill is embodied knowledge. That's knowledge that you've woven into the movements of your body, okay? Everything begins, every skill begins with some kind of knowledge. The best way for you to develop knowledge is typically in the dojo. You have an instructor and he can answer questions in detail and give you a lifetime of knowledge when you're there working with him. But if there's a close second, it's videos. Okay, I strongly urge my students to watch video as much as they can. World champions from past and present. BJJ Fanatics offers instructional videos from some of the greatest players of all time, elite coaching staff, etc., etc. So there's a wealth of knowledge out there. When you can't work on skills, work on knowledge, because knowledge is the precursor to skill. I promise you this, if you can take during that time off, time to work on your movement skills, keep yourself in good physical shape, and increase your knowledge, when it's time to come back to the mats, for whatever reason you were laid off them, you're going to find you're in great shape, you're moving better than you were before, and you have knowledge that you didn't have previously. And as a result, you're going to find there's a period of time when you first come back that the skills come very easily to you. You go through a rapid period of growth, which can be one of the most rewarding parts of your jiu-jitsu training. So again, in summary, at the end of this video, there's 3 things I want you working on whenever you're forced away from the dojo where you normally train. Work on your body movement skills, as outlined in this video. Work on an overall, independent and supplemental physical conditioning program, which keeps your strength, flexibility, weight, etc., where it should be during the time off. And then third, work on increasing your knowledge, because knowledge is the precursor to skill, and skill is the ultimate determinant of who wins and who loses in this sport. The whole idea of this video is to enhance your performance, the same thing it is in all of my videos. If you can stick with that simple 3-step program when you're held off the mats for whatever reason, you're going to find when you come back, there's going to be a rapid phase of growth and performance will go up. I promise you this. This has always been my experience as a coach. The only time I've seen people take extended periods of time off the mat and come back worse than they were before, to a degree what was really noticeable, is when they abandon the sport completely. As long as you keep your body in the game and your mind in the game, you'll come back stronger. But when you just say, let me just take time off and I'll think about it when I come back, that's when you see deterioration. That's when you see people coming back not as good as they were before. I've seen people come back from extended periods of time after terrible surgeries and come back within a very short period of time, get very good again, and in many ways better, just because they worked hard on increasing their knowledge, keeping their body in the best shape they could in the time off, and by working on those supplemental body skills that we saw in this video. Said that I had seen a great variety of strength and conditioning programs which Jiu-Jitsu and mixed martial arts athletes had used over the years, and that there was never any evidence to suggest that any one of them dominated any of the others. They were all as good as the athlete made them. As long as the athlete was dedicated, stayed with them for a long period of time, they got good results with a wide variety of strength and conditioning programs. So as a general rule, I let the athlete determine which they will choose and then let them be comfortable with that. But there is one exception to that rule. There is one simple exercise which I do insist all of my athletes do on an almost daily basis. This is variations of the simple exercise toes to bar. Essentially, it's a form of leg lift where from a hanging bar, we come up and touch our toes or even ankles or shins to the bar. There are two main variations that my students work, and this is something of our daily training. The reason why I insist on this above all other supplemental exercises outside of the gym is because it gets you around the greatest problems that most beginning athletes in Jiu-Jitsu face. When you look at beginning athletes, the two quickest areas in which they become quickly exhausted when they begin their Jiu-Jitsu classes are typically the forearms and the front core, okay? They will fatigue over time in their whole body, but those are always the first two areas to run into crises. So this exercise absolutely enhances your ability to maintain endurance and strength in those two critical areas. And perhaps even more importantly, it makes you strong in what is absolutely the single most important postural command of Jiu-Jitsu, which is elbow to knee connection. Okay, the sport will test your ability to maintain knee to elbow connection more than any other. If you're going to fail in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu, 90% of the failures are going to come from failure to maintain integrity of knee and elbow position as you grapple with your opponent. Toes to bar is the simplest, easiest way for you to develop the kind of core strength you'll need to endure a hard, rigorous match with a tough opponent and maintain that knee to elbow position, which will be required for victory. The movement itself is very simple, okay? We're going to start with a grip on a bar high enough that your toes won't touch the floor. That's the only prerequisite needed. We're going to come down into a hang. The key idea is we're not going to use any form of momentum to generate the lift. Everything begins with the shoulders coming up just like so. Then from there, I generally recommend you work with a minimum of 5 repetitions. Anything less than 5, and you won't be working the endurance of your forearms enough. If you can go more than 12, you should be doing a more difficult variation of the exercise. So somewhere between 5 and 12 should be your goal. It's a relatively easy exercise to perform. Anyone of even moderate athletic potential should be able to do it. I always recommend when you first start off, start in sets of 5, and build from there. When you try to increase the numbers, don't worry about the numbers so much as the execution. Don't get sloppy. No one cares if you get an extra 2 repetitions if you're swinging with momentum. Focus on a good stationary body and a clean lift of the legs with your legs absolutely straight, coming all the way up. That's the first variation. The second variation is a windshield wiper variation, where we go up once and then go for repetitions from one side to the other. Try to build up to around 10 repetitions left and right. So this would look slightly different. In this case, we're going to go beyond toes to bar and bring our shins to the bar. So from the same dead hang, that side-to-side repetition represents well the idea of elbow to knee connection while moving left and right, which is one of the main demands of the sport. These simple exercises are something you can master in a relatively short time frame. If you feel on your first day that you can't perform the exercises, you would go through easier variations where you bring, for example, your knees to your chest, or you only go up halfway, but your goal in the end is always to go up fully to the bar. Obviously, there's a beginning level flexibility. I recommend stretching out so you can touch the back of your hands on the floor. That will make it easier. If you're very tight in the hamstrings, that alone will make it more difficult for you. So over time, your flexibility requirement would be the back of your hands to the mat, and then that simple notion of straight arms. Don't cheat with bent arms. Everything at a dead hang. Then from the hang, just a slight shrug of the shoulders. And everything up to the bar. Again, working with a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 12. If you can get 12 to the bar with perfect form, then it's time to move on to a more difficult exercise. This is probably the only supplemental exercise outside of the gym that I insist all of my athletes use. Other than that, I give them carte blanche. They do whatever they want, whatever they feel more comfortable. There's 1,000 different exercise programs out there. All of them I've seen very good results with over time. But this, everyone has to do.
I've lost my mind doing this game, yeah? Like Vincent van Gogh. He dedicated his life to his art and lost his mind in the process. That's happened to me.
One of the very great things that C.G. Jung contributed to mankind's understanding was the concept of the shadow.
The shadow, you know, that Jung's famous idea that everyone has a dark side and that dark side needs to be incorporated and made conscious.
Do what he called to integrate the evil, to, as it were, put the devil in us in its proper function. Because you see, the unacknowledged one, the outcast, the scapegoat,
Tell him to join the queue.
the bastard, the bad guy, you see, the black sheep of the family. It's always from that point.
You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
To have the play, it's necessary to introduce a villain.
I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you?
You should try, John. You really should try, John.
I would literally kill you.
Just try to bite his heart. That time I thought I really want to bite his heart.
It's necessary to introduce a certain element of trouble. So, in the whole scheme of life, there has to be the shadow. Because without the shadow, there can't be the substance.
You know, because everyone says, well, you should be harmless, virtuous. You shouldn't do anyone any harm. You should sheath your competitive instinct. You shouldn't try to win. You know, you don't want to be too aggressive. You don't want to be too assertive. You want to take a back seat and all of that. It's like, no. Wrong. You should be a monster, an absolute monster, and then you should learn how to control it.
Because there was no outsiders. It was isolation. It was visualization. It was motivation, and it was dedication. There was nothing else going on in my life.
If you're going to try, go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start.
Relax. Yeah, but just relax. Just relax.
It could mean not eating for 3 or 4 days. It could mean freezing on a park bench. It could mean jail. It could mean mockery, isolation.
All it is another boxing match. You've done it already 20 times. Let's go get ready for a fight.
This could mean losing girlfriends, wives, jobs, and maybe your mind.
I beat you after a weekend of cocaine.
Tonight's entertainment.
A holy person is one who is whole, who has, as it were, reconciled his opposites, And so there's always something slightly scary about holy people. And other people react to them in very strange ways. They can't make up their minds whether they're saints or devils. And so holy people have throughout history always created a great deal of trouble.
The shadow of the human being reaches all the way to hell.
So the holy person is scary because he is like the ocean.
Send me a message, like location, I'm gonna come. Whatever you want, doesn't matter. Ireland, New York, Brooklyn, or Moscow, doesn't matter.
I prayed this prayer asking God to just give me the supernatural reaction abilities.
See the ocean on a lovely sunny day, you can say, oh, isn't that gorgeous? And you can go into it and relax.
Praying this prayer and touching myself, and rubbing myself, and meaning every ounce of this, thinking my life is on the line. I noticed, looking at myself, that I was covered in feathers.
Boy, when the storm comes, does that thing get mad. Terrifying.
Nothing you can do to stop me, Daniel Cormier. Expect very malicious, violent things to happen. Are you still there?
I actually admire that you can actually be this fake.
It was
real as fuck to you.
It was very real to me. It was very real to me. I could see myself covered in there was like small feathers in between my fingers. I felt like I was like this fighting thing that wasn't earthly.
So there is in us ocean, you see.
He actually means what he says. It's not a metaphor. It's like the part of you that's twisted against being.
I was gonna rip his heart out. I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been.
This is my life, and I'm willing to die to beat you. Because as I've said many times, you don't deserve this.
No. Be prepared to do that.
I think I am a bad guy that's trying to be good.
Is this guy gonna mess this up again by doing steroids or snorting cocaine or...
I beat you after a weekend of cocaine. Just because religiously we're all sinners. We're all sinners.
Fucking officers, I fucking hate you. I hate you.
Car accident. Anyone injured? I'm not sure. I know 2 people did get out.
Well, you know, unfortunately, we're seeing this kind of pattern of self-sabotage.
We're born into sin. It's our nature to sin.
So this is why there is a very strange association between crime and all naughty things. So you see, holiness is way beyond being good. Good people aren't necessarily holy people.
Everybody would bring other kids from different neighborhoods around to fight me for money.
But at a young age, I was really experienced at a young age. I knew what was happening. Like I'm saying, I'm 10 years old. I knew what time it was. I knew it was like to hear people scream in the middle of the night or getting mugged. I saw people get shot. I heard my mother get a lot. So I knew about the world. It wasn't like I was stupid from the world perspective.
Punches are not made, they are born. He was born a puncher. It's just my nature, and I mean, to reach for you and take your heart or your blood or your spleen or your liver.
Customato would watch me for like, he didn't let me box, he would just talk to me for like 2 or 3 weeks about fighting and the psychology of fighting. And no fighting was truly about fighting, wasn't nothing physical, it was all spiritual.
And Jung felt that the whole point was to bring the two together, and by a kind of fantastic honesty.
But I feel, I don't label myself a trash talker. I label myself a truth talker.
If you'd have got off that bus, you'd be dead now. No, okay. You'd be dead and I'd be in a cell. Here's my location, you little fool. Right in front of you. Do something about it. Do something about it.
To penetrate one's own motivations to the depths. Jung had a tremendous humor. And he knew that nobody can be completely honest. That you will try and you'll have a great deal of success.
Do you want to make this situation worse? Do you want to make a bad situation worse?
In exploring your motivations and your dark, unconscious depths, that there will be a certain point at which you will say, well, I've had enough of that.
I just want to mow people. Doesn't matter. When I go to the cage, I mow my opponents.
Isn't it because you know that there is a big difference between what goes on the outside and what goes on the
every day I go to the training and I do something because I know I have competition. When I was kid, I beginning like in freestyle wrestling, then I moved to judo, combat sambo, MMA. I doing like almost 13 years, last 13 years professional, and all my life I was doing something like preparing for somebody, for some amateur fights, amateur wrestling, or professional MMA. You know, it's like, but right now it's like it's a little bit hard for me, you know, like without competition. Don't focus on your opponent. Why you have to focus on him? Just focus on yourself. Train all the time, not only training camp. Like I told all my guys, you cannot train only when UFC give you guys fight. No, like last 2 months, like 3 months. This is not good time to improve. This is good time to become good shape. But other time when you don't have fights, like okay, you finish your fight, 1 week you rest, after that you have to come to the gym and improve yourself all the time. When UFC give you fight, okay, focus on fight and become more good shape and fight, put your level on different, like another level, or improve yourself. Like you cannot train only when UFC give you fight. But most of the celebrity people do this when they become famous, when they have money, everything, they busy, they travel, everything. Okay, they think I'm champion, I need only 3 months. No, this is big mistake. Everything about discipline. Everything about discipline, and every day, like, you know, train, sleep, eat, repeat. They have to become your lifestyle, and everything here in mental. Like people ask me like, when you become champion, what you feel like? And I said, no, in my mind, I was always champion. In my mind, all the time when I see someone compete like in my weight classes, and I think, okay, like since when when UFC signed me, it was like 2012, 2013, 14, like that time, I would think about, I'm gonna beat these guys. I can beat all of them, you know, like everything about mental. Nobody can say nothing about my career. I don't think like 13 and all in UFC. I fight with absolutely best guys, and I don't care about this. Just let people judge, you know. We have a lot of hate on this world, you know. I don't wanna give people bad energy. If something happen, it's gonna be happy, you know. I don't like to talk people with, oh, if I'm gonna see this guy, if I'm gonna like see other guy, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. Like, who's gonna talk? Who never gonna do this? You know, it's like it's gonna be like, we don't know what situation is gonna be. Maybe we're gonna be alone, or maybe it's gonna be like 200 camera around, like a lot of security. You never know, you know. But I really don't like this, you know. Like fame and money show who you are, you know. All the time we hear about like money and fame change people. No, when money and fame come, these two things show who you are. You know, it's like, this is not about I knew or no. This is like...
Did you have a vision, is what I'm trying to say.
I have vision. I have vision, like all the time I think about like, if not injuries, or if nothing happen, like if I'm gonna fight, like for example, with this champion, I can beat him. Like always, like my mind think about like, I just need to compete with this guy. I really want to compete with him. You know, like I remember when Anthony Pettis fight with Gilbert Melendez. It was like in Vegas. I was there, like I do my rehab for my knee, and I was very close to cage, you know. And they fight for the lightweight title. And I think like when fight finished, I was think like, these guys, people call them like best in the world, and I think I can beat these guys. And my focus was like crazy, you know. And after that, Rafael Dos Anjos, after like 3 months, beat Anthony Pettis. And I was thinking like, hey, 1 year ago, I mauled Rafael Dos Anjos. All these chickens, they fight for my title, you know. It's like, and I'm here without belt, and all these chickens, they fight for my title, you know. It's like, but that time I was injured, you know, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do everything what I have to do, and I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna maul all of them. And when I come back, like 2016, 14, I have injured, 16, I come back, and it was like two different Khabib, you know. It's like when I fight Dos Anjos and all these fights before I get injured, and after that, I changed completely. I truly believe this time I can become best. But I know like a lot of people don't believe this, but my team, my father, my close people, they believe me, they support me, they was always with me. And right now when I finish, I cannot be away from this because all these guys, they support me all my career. And these guys, big part of my success, you know. That's why I'm here, that's why like I leave my family, I come here to support these guys. When I want, I go to the training. When I don't want, I don't go to the gym, you know. Like 1 year ago, I was big star and I was busy too. And same time, I knew I have to fight with lions. That's why doesn't matter where I fight, where I go, I always training. Never, ever, never. For me, training, for me is like, I don't know what have to happen, you know. It's like, if I'm very sick, you know, if I catch flu or something like this, of course I cannot train. But even if I broke my leg, broke my arm, broke my ribs, doesn't matter. Even if I have surgery on my back, you know, it's like, doesn't matter. I always train. I always in gym. Even I cannot do nothing, I just come to the gym and I watch and I try to learn something. And you know, this is how you have to be if you want to be champion. If not, on this business, this is don't work. I don't know, maybe in soccer or American football, when you're celebrity, you just come, play, like, but you can say like, I play soccer, football, basketball, hockey, but you cannot say I play MMA. You cannot say, you have to compete here with lions. If not, they're gonna hurt you. You're gonna break something, or they're gonna hurt you, like, they're gonna give you knee, elbow, punch, they're gonna choke you, they're gonna break your arms, they're gonna break your legs. You have to be careful with this sport. This is not like just regular sport. We have to make him busy, do something like in other, like, you know, like things. Because in this sport, you have to be very hungry. Or other way, like someone gonna come and hurt you. When you have family, kids, when you have all life ahead, you know, it's like, this is not easy. Like, look what happened with Conor. You know, his kids watch, like his family watch. Look what happened with like Chris Weidman or like Anderson Silva. Like, not only these guys who broke legs, like other guys who have damage on their brain, you know. How many guys, they still compete, knockout, 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 knockout. This is change your mind, change your brain. Like, this is give you very, like, they make you like different person because of too much, you eat too much punch. You know, this is, you cannot play MMA. You know, this is very dangerous.